Our current stock market right here, right now, is actually, it's over the 2 times earnings, or over the 2 times standard deviation. It is 80% higher, the PE ratio. People are willing to pay close to like 30 times earnings right now for stocks in the S&P 500. All right, boom shakalaka. Today we're going to do another Rags to Rich podcast. So the big thing I want to cover with you guys today is, like, if you guys have noticed that they're starting to look like there's signs of a recession coming. And I'll give you the signs. I'll give you the telltales that you can start identifying, and then you can make your own decision. But the name of this podcast I'm doing today is called How to Position Yourself for the Upcoming Recession and Wealth Transfer Window. What do I mean by wealth transfer window? Every single time there's a recession, there's always a transfer of wealth that actually takes place. In fact, one of the very first times I saw this, I got exposed to it. I was down in Tucson, Arizona, where I worked for a missile manufacturer, and the guy that lived across the street from me, he was a school teacher, and he was really, really frustrated because his stuff was inside. All of his retirement was inside the school district's like compensation or pension plan. He became very, very frustrated that he couldn't pull the money out. And this was in 2009 when he was trying to pull it out. And I'm like, dude, like, why would you pull it out now? Like, the market, remember that little old axiom, like buy low, sell high? I'm like, look, bro, the market is extremely low. Why would you make that decision? Because you're going to hurt yourself. And if the guy actually would have sold it, he would have actually sold at the bottom, lost a massive amount of money, and as a result, he would have crushed his actual retirement plan. But they wouldn't let him pull it out. I'm like, dude, good for you. Thank goodness they won't allow you to do something stupid. But what happened is not everybody was in that position where they were locked into it, and there was actually a massive wealth transfer. And so when I show you these details, then you can decide for yourself if you see that there's an upcoming wealth transfer. And then I'm going to give you the 3 secrets or 3 things that you can do right here, right now to start getting yourself prepared for this upcoming event. Okay. So number 1, the very first thing that I see that looks really, really strange. I don't know if you guys ever follow the S&P 500, but one of their things is you can track the PE ratio. That's price to earnings ratio. If you're not familiar with that term, basically what it means is, like, let's just say I have a friend, he's got a gym. Let's just say his gym is making $100,000 a year. And then the big question is how many times or how many years are you willing to wait to recover all of your money? And historically, the S&P 500 would say, well, just take the earnings of 100,000, multiply it by 15. So the value of that gym's $1.5 million. And so that was the PE ratio. Historically, the S&P 500 has been at 15 times earnings. That's what the historical average is. And we're going to look in the rearview mirror a little bit, and I'll give you some context so then you can see what I'm seeing. Okay. Remember the tech bubble that happened in 2000? The tech bubble, all of a sudden, it went up to a PE ratio of, looks like it's about, I don't know, say 35 times earnings. It was like it doubled. It was actually, this graph right here shows that I'm looking at my data. It shows that it was 127% above average. And so what they did on this graph is they broke down the standard deviations. Like, how many standard deviations has it moved off of the norm or their normal running rate? And it actually was in excess of 2 times the standard deviation. Like, normally things don't get outside of even like 1 time standard deviation is like, okay, things are a little different. 2 times standard deviation is like, wow, we have a one-off event. This is really, really weird. Doesn't make sense. Okay. So it hit 2 times standard deviation in 2020, and all of a sudden the market busted. And not only did it crash, but it came tumbling down with tremendous amount of thunder. Okay. That's what happened. Normally, when the stock market gets way too high, people are willing to pay 35 times earnings or whatever. I mean, it's just too much. It's way in excess of what things are actually worth. Like, if you think about it, are you willing to sit around and make no money for 35 years waiting for that thing to play out? And your answer is probably no. our current stock market right here, right now, is actually, it's over the 2 times earnings or over the 2 times standard deviation. It is 80% higher, the PE ratio. People are willing to pay close to like 30 times earnings right now for stocks in the S&P 500. Like it's off the rails. I only see 2 significant events going back all the way to the 1950s where the stock market has exceeded 2 times standard deviation. One in the year 2000, and right here, it happened last year. So last year and presently, this is the second time in the last 70 years we've exceeded 2 times standard deviation. So we're 80% over. Now, normally when you see this, there's usually a correction on the backside. And when that correction happens, that's when people discover that assets people will all of a sudden bail out of the market at the same time. A mass exodus. And that mass exodus, what you'll see in a minute, is what creates opportunities to invest. Okay, so the next data point. So I just showed you the stock market. It's 2 times standard deviation, which is there's only really 2 significant events that's happened in history. 2000 and then presently, okay? The next one this is new home construction starts. What is happening in this industry? You guys remember 2006? What it is the graph shows that new construction just went absolutely off the rails. There was so many homes getting produced for so long that all of a sudden it hit this tipping point, and you see that's like 2006, 2007, and all of a sudden the new construction, the new homing starts, it snapped. And as a result, there was this huge backslide on the backside where people were giving houses, were giving assets away, like anything they could do to dump these particular assets. That is actually right here. So the second time, and let's see, let me pull this graph up, goes back to 1982. 1982, there has only been 2 spikes, 2 peaks in this asset market where it has hit these levels. And we're talking like off the rails, like I think like the standard deviation. This is indexed. So the index, just put it into context, is like the average is say like 50 on this index. Okay. So 50 on this index. In 2006, it hit 106 on the index. You can see that it went double the actual index average. And so the only other time that it's done this is presently. Presently, we have now, this is the second time in the last 40, 50 years that it's actually hit this 106 number on the index. Or in other words, it is more than double what the normal running rate is for new homes and new construction. So I'm seeing this in the real estate market. You remember 2006, massive slide on the back end. Things got really hairy. Things got ugly. We are at the exact same new home construction starts as we saw back then. So the next piece, we're going to take and look at the home price increases, seeing how much these things have jumped. These things have been indexed, okay? So the last time we saw this graph goes from 1970. 1970 was indexed at about 65 on this particular index, okay? The running rate right across here is around 70. In 2006, this index jumped up significantly, hit 100. Okay, you can see that it's almost 100% increase or ramp up in the price of those particular houses. Then 2006 hit, snap, housing dropped down considerably. Right now, we are running on this index. We're running about 108. Or in other words, normal is about 60 on the index. We're running about 108 right now. Or in other words, this is the highest, fastest ramp up of prices that I can see on the index. This is the Fed index where they track. It's called the S&P Case-Shiller's U.S. National Home Price Index. So that's the index so that you can start seeing home prices. Okay, we are at the all-time high from any historical averages or ramp ups. So basically we're sitting probably about 2 times standard deviation. Does that make sense? So that's what you're seeing in there. So the next asset bubble I want to point out to you, actually this is the fourth one. I'm showing you 4 of these, okay? This is the commodity prices. They've also gone in and indexed commodity prices. And that way we can kind of see how it is and how it's ramped up and stuff. This one actually has a couple different data points we can look at. So 2007, 2008, commodity prices hit one of the all-time highs. Normally this index looks like it was probably, I'd say maybe the average on here is right around 100. Okay. So in 2006, 2007 timeframe, this thing jumped up to 185 on the index. And then there was a massive pullback, did a huge backslide. We saw it then jump back up again to about 185 in about 2011, a massive pullback, and it hasn't been back there. And now at present, it is now at the all-time high again. Okay. So here's the thing I want to point out. These are commodity prices that we're seeing. This is the index. This is the increase in which these things have gone up. So commodity are at an all-time high, and every single one of these all-time high peaks were followed by a huge pullback in the market. We are now at an all-time high on prices, the way in which it ramped up. This is the highest in like the last 60 years. Okay, so that is at an all-time high. The stock market is at a all-time high, or new construction or new housing starts. And the stock market's at one, it's not quite the all-time high. The all-time high was the tech bubble. Okay, so anyway, I've showed you 4 commodities, all of them which have hit the all-time highs. And at the all-time highs, they've typically pulled back, and there's been a huge pullback over quite a considerable period of time. So then the whole point of this is not to necessarily scare you. The point is just to look at the data and then to ask this question: how there will be a huge transfer of wealth that takes place in this upcoming next recession. And so the big 3 things I want to cover with you, I'll show you, is if you position yourself properly, you can actually come out the backside smelling like roses. Like, what do I mean? Okay, the very first one is you've got to figure out, you've got to look at how do you make your business recession proof. And what do I mean by that? Okay, let me tell you what happens in the new home construction business. Here's what I can tell. When the market pulls back, and it's inevitable that the market will pull back, there's going to be a ton of construction guys sitting around with nothing to do because they were so committed to building new houses. But if they're not putting in new houses, they're going to get hurt. People that sell like washers, dryers, and all these appliances that go into the new houses. When it pulls back, those companies are going to get hurt. Okay. That's things that you can anticipate. So if you're a contractor, you might want to consider figuring out how to start doing, like, say, remodels, or picking a construction business that actually is more recession proof. Like, give you an example. When 2006 hit, okay, 2006 hit, I was actually working at a company called Raytheon Missile Systems. We had long-term contracts. So even though the entire economy and everything around me in the city of Tucson was in shambles and life was really, really difficult, honestly, I really didn't notice it, at least not in my checkbook, because my contracts were long-term. They did not get canceled. We continued to go through the recession without actually experiencing a big economic hardship. Okay. One of the things I can point out to you, you can anticipate doing well during a recession, is if you look at the way the United States is being powered, the way it's being powered is transferring at a rapid clip from like coal-fired plants to like natural gas. It is transferring to solar. People are getting solar, they're putting it up on their houses, and they're discovering it's much, much more affordable than actually buying it from the utility company, who is typically a monopoly, and they can raise prices at ever increasing prices, and then people get stuck with it. So that industry is recession proof in the sense that if you're a construction guy, you could still continue to work in that industry and move off or stay in the construction space, but be recession resistant. Why do I say that? Everybody has a utility bill. Okay. It's not going to go away during recessions. Like, it doesn't go away. In fact, in a recession, people will try to find ways to save money, which would take it would be an accelerant to encourage people to put solar up on their house. So that is something I see as recession proof. One is like car or industries that manufacture parts for automobiles. Like people will slow down purchasing new vehicles, and there will be a transfer to people fixing the existing vehicle that they have. And that would cause you to be recession proof. Like Checker Auto Parts, they're going to do great. Or AutoZone. These guys are going to do, or I guess maybe one of those got bought, like O'Reilly. They're going to do great during the recession. Okay. So start thinking about what businesses would do well during a recession. Okay. Number 2, cash on hand to invest. Like, what do I mean by this? So if you understand that the big idea here is to buy low and sell high, right? So if you look at the market right now, if we're at 2 times standard deviations, people are paying way in excess of what the value, historical value of these assets have been. You need to ask yourself, is that high or is that low? And if your conclusion is that that's high, then the answer is, well, think twice before you buy something. You need cash on hand and powder. Like the Kennedys, JFK, the Kennedy, the family, they came into a massive amount of wealth during a recession where they actually went up and bought stocks for pennies on the dollar. And then they slayed it. Warren Buffett says, like right now, he goes, man, like, I'm trying to remember his exact name. He used the harem example. He's like, man, I'm an oversexed guy. And there's nothing. He can't find anything that he could buy or he could own. But when the recession hit, he's like, holy cow. Like, it is time to shop. Go look at Warren Buffett's balance sheet. The guy's got $100 billion plus in cash because he can't find things that are attractive to buy. And I'll tell you what he's waiting for. He's waiting for the market to fall apart because when it did previously in 2006, 2007, 2009, he went and bought up a Northern Railroad. He bought up an entire railroad. He bought the entire enchilada during that downturn. He will buy assets like crazy during the downturn. So if you want to play the game like Warren Buffett, take his advice. Like right here, right now, he does not deploy capital. He's got dry powder, dry cash sitting in his checking account waiting for the world to blow up. So that's secret number 2, cash on hand. Number 3, figure out partnerships, ways that you can get into the game and start investing. So when 2009 hit, when I tried to figure out how to invest, it was like 2005, 2006, maybe 2004. I was trying to figure out how to buy real estate. And I was like, gosh, dang, I cannot find numbers. I cannot find properties. I'm like struggling like crazy to find properties that pencil. And I bought one, and thank goodness I was able to like turn it from like just a single family unit. I actually ended up turning it into a triplex so I could pull more cash out of the property. That's what pulled me through that environment. But I got so frustrated that I stopped investing in real estate totally. And then when 2009 finally hit, and I was like, holy cow, these banks are begging you to take their property. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I remember buying property for like $70,000, $80,000. These were houses that were like 2 years old, 1 year old. I'm like, these houses are really, really nice. And I'm paying like maybe 50 cents on the dollar. I bought them up. In the end, I wound up with 14 doors because these were highly profitable. But what did I do? I went and I formed relationships and partnerships. At that very same time, I had a friend that I had 2 friends that slayed it. One friend, he was a real estate agent, and basically he went out and he started finding anybody that had cash. You got cash. Are you willing? Do you have cash on hand? And when they said that they did, because as an investor, I could only accumulate, I think at the time, 4 properties in my name. That has since been expanded to 10. But like I could only get 4 mortgages in my name. I'm like, but there's all these assets. And so like I ended up putting my family into partnerships. And then we ended up putting all the properties in all of our names so that we could expand how many we could own. But my friend, he, as a real estate investor, as a real estate agent, and he did it smarter than me. He literally went and tracked down people that had cash, said, hey, it's sitting there. Why don't we start making some money on it? Because you're not making money off your investment or leaving the money in the checking account. And he did. And he wound up with like 160 something properties. Changed his life. That 2-year window completely changed his life. Revolutionized the entire thing. See what I'm saying? I had another friend that did that. He's up to now 4,000 real estate transactions. But he made most of it, shockingly, down in my stomping ground, down in Arizona, where the world fell apart. So just start considering, who is it that I could partner with? Who is it that has assets? Like maybe you could do the sweat equity. and then you could work with them to do it. Or maybe you've got the money, but you got to figure the guy who's got the hustle to go out and start doing this and finding properties. Like for me, my breakthrough when buying those investment properties, I had to find a realtor that was not afraid to work. They were having a hard time figuring out how to move properties. And I talked to this realtor, I talked to a whole bunch of them. I'm like, all right, we're going to write these next 10 offers. They're like, dude, I ain't writing no 10 offers. I'm like, all right, like it's not going to work then. And I found a guy who was willing to write 10 offers. I'm like, all right, bro, we're going to write these 10 offers. I'm not even going to go look at them. I just want to know who's in the marketplace and is interested. So he wrote up all the offers, sent it to me, and then we just started plucking them off. Pluck, 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 pluck. Okay, those are the 3 big secrets I want to capture. So if you came in a little late, let me take and do a quick rehash of it. That way you walk away with it, okay? So during a recession, there is always a huge wealth transfer, okay? So secret number 1 is start figuring out how to position your business to do well during a recession. Like, let me give you an example of a way to position yourself. Remember when COVID hit? Pre-COVID, if you were in the health fitness space, you were like, hey, come to the gym, look good, get your beach body on, right? Like you want to look sexy. I'll make you look sexy. Come to my gym, come work out with me, and I'll teach you how to look amazing. The messaging on that particular product, like I have friends in the space that they shifted it. They're like, hey, come to the gym. We've got to figure out how to get you healthy to make you less susceptible to getting COVID. Like take care of yourself. The best defense against that stuff is to make sure that your body is in prime condition. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sell you like food supplements. We're going to start cleaning up your diet. We're going to start doing we're going to do exercise. We're going to get you cardiovascular. We're going to improve your lungs. So if you get COVID and you get it inside your lungs, it's not going to hurt you as bad. Okay. They changed the packaging or the messaging on it. So that right there is probably the simplest way to ask yourself, how could you make yourself recession proof? But the main thing is you've got to find a way to make you and your business recession proof. And it very well may be you have to take what you're doing and shift it to an adjacent market. Like instead of new construction, you're going to have to shift to home remodels. Now, I think the construction space is in trouble because there's way too many guys in it building houses now. And if it pulls back, I don't know if the market could absorb all of the guys to do remodels. But nevertheless, keep that in mind. Remodels will actually pop up during a recession. Like right now, I guess remodels are high because everybody's pulling tons of equity out of their houses. But when the market pulls back, dude, there's going to be some blood in the street and pain because people are going to discover that paychecks went down. They had dual incomes to be able to support the home. And then maybe they don't make the same amount of money. There's going to be blood in the streets. I can tell you it's going to happen. It will happen. So number 2, follow Warren Buffett. Make sure you have cash on hand because when things get cheap, buy low, sell high. Things are high right now. Warren Buffett has cash on hand. He's going to buy when it's low. It's not low right now. It's actually 2 times standard deviations. It's as high as it's ever been. Not quite as high as 2001 or the tech bubble that happened in 2001. Number 3, figure out or start figuring out or creating partnerships so that you can figure out how to leverage either your money or your time with somebody else. Somebody's got the resource that you need so that you can capitalize and kill it during this window. Okay. I created a stock partnership and I also created a real estate partnership during 2009 because the stock market was low. It was like cheap. People were giving stocks away and they were giving the houses away. Therefore, it made sense to buy the assets. See what I'm saying? Okay. That was a rags to riches secrets. I wanted to bring that to you. Like if you're like, hey, Mike, what could you do to help me? 2 things I can help you. Like, I'll show you the 2 things I'm doing so that I'm getting in front of it. Like, here's what I noticed. During COVID, like, do you remember, you know Jeff Bezos, right? Jeff Bezos actually left a very, very profitable, he had a tremendous salary working for a bank, and he left it to create Amazon because he noticed that it was growing at 1,000%. The online commerce is growing at an absolutely astronomical pace. Like, it's stupid how fast it's growing. It actually grows. Amazon got so big so fast that it scared the crap out of Walmart, that Walmart is now heavily going into the e-commerce space. And they're allowing like people like you, people like me to start selling our products on the platform. They're actually putting themselves in the position of a platform, just like Amazon does. And so I'm seeing that shift. COVID accelerated that. Jeff Bezos got divorced during that window, got his assets cut in half by, like, we're not even out of COVID, and he is already, his his net worth is already more than when he got divorced. You see what I'm saying? Because there's so much push into e-commerce. So what I did is I've gone in and I've created e-com stores. What do I mean by that? Like, it's an automated done-for-you service. So if you say, Mike, I am not an expert at e-commerce. I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. We know how to pick the products, source the products. We know how to list the products. We know how to do everything. Just come in, plug in. It's a done-for-you service. We'll take and solve the whole thing. Because I know even though a recession hits, people will still continue to shop online, and that space will continue to grow. Now, we might have to figure out what people are willing to buy, because that could shift. But I know that that's going to happen. The other business that I've done is, like, I've been in solar for a long time, so I set it up so I can start franchising it out. Because I already know with all these electric vehicles coming online, there's a shortage of electricity in the United States. I already know with all these new houses that have come online, it put even more constraint. We are constrained on our ability to produce enough power for all of the things that we're trying to do. So I put, those are the two businesses that I've shifted towards, because I already know that those things are recession proof and they will accelerate during a downturn. Anyway, I will talk to you later.